Hi, Corey. Thank you so much for joining the podcast and for sharing more about greenery. So excited to know more about yourself and your company.
Certainly. Steph, thank you so much. Really appreciate it. It's been a while. So my name is Corey Stedman, CEO of Greenfire, and we aim to build products that bridge the cryptocurrency ecosystem with the real world. And our product that we're doing that with is Greenery, which is a cryptocurrency bookkeeping and accounting wallet for Web3 and DeFi, and it solves the problem of basically managing cryptocurrency analogous to how we manage fiat currency um, for avid traders, merchants, and accountants. So the whole idea behind it is that for saying that cryptocurrency is indeed a currency and that people will be using it to denominate their goods and services in, then you need tools to manage that, right? So if you're selling um, you know, basketball cards or shoes or, you know, you know, chairs or real estate and it's denominated in Litecoin or Ethereum or Bitcoin or Tezos, right? You know, the current tools out there are inadequate for managing this process. So it means to say, if you wanted to sell, I don't know, you wanted to say you have 10 laptops and you want to sell them in ETH, right? Selling one item is fine, right? But if you're managing a store, you can't just resort to a spreadsheet, right? You need to have inventory. You need to be able to track how things are being sold, the price that it's being sold at, and then um, who you're selling it to. If you're shipping it, how much the shipping was, like all these different things that goes into merchant services and MetaMask, Exodus, Phantom, Quick, they're all inadequate for managing cryptocurrency in this manner. So that was that's the idea behind what we're doing.
So it's really bridging the gap between physical and digital, and adding
Yeah.
that bookkeeping element
Yes.
into a wallet.
Yes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
And how did you come with this idea? And what's the vision, the long term vision for greenery?
Yeah. So the idea came when I had two friends of mine. They were um they were doing a lot of trades and they didn't even know each other. And within the same week, they both came to me and like, hey, Core, check this out. And there's this really elaborate spreadsheet that they had put together to track their trades. And they both told me, hey, you should do the same thing too. And I said, no, I'm not doing. There has to be an automated way to do this, right? And I looked and I could not find anything, right? Nothing to adequately track the gains and losses, right? Um, and I just couldn't find anything. So I kind of put that idea off to the side. But then when my team and we got picked up at a VC firm to build a cryptocurrency trading bot, um, we had I I'd had like a skunkworks project where I was like, oh, let me pursue this, right? And I watched a couple of YouTube videos and I put together a very crude version of the wallet. And then my team of interns, we got it together. But then that startup failed. And so I was left with just this thing that didn't really work. But then I just couldn't let it go. And that's the entrepreneur in me. And so I was like, you know what? Let me put some real muscle behind this. And essentially 3, 4 years later, here we are.
That's cool. So you started with really with a problem that you personally encounter and couldn't
Hmm.
find a solution, and then started to build from there.
Yes, yes, exactly.
And so you mentioned also your wallet and potentially going towards decentralized identity last
Hmm.
time that we spoke. So yeah, I would love to hear more your thoughts on decentralized identity, and maybe also interoperability between wallets and identifiers.
Yeah, so identity is something that's, I think that's intrinsic to everybody's life in many ways, more than one. Um, you know, who are you? What makes you you, right? And on the internet, you is very an abstract concept because you on the internet most likely is different than you in real life, right? Um, and so identity is something that's it's a very interesting concept. And when you apply it to Web3, you know, we have human readable addresses, which is essentially DNS, um, but for cryptocurrency addresses. And how our wallet relates to it and the evolution of our wallet relates to it is that um, one thing that we hear about in the cryptocurrency space is people sending cryptocurrency to the wrong address, right?
Yes. Yeah, I
So,
think that happens very often. Or like
yeah.
people getting their money caught on a bridge or like, yeah.
Hmm. Yeah. And one of those reasons is that, you type in the address wrong or you copy it wrong or whatever. And so in our wallet, we've made we've made a lot of effort to reduce the likelihood of sending cryptocurrency to the wrong address. We support Ethereum name service, ENS. We
Hmm.
support Tezos domains, and we support unstoppable domains. And
That's awesome.
we, yeah, we will expand it as well once we add other currencies, other chains as well. Um, the other part of it, and the thing is, right now our wallet is a desktop wallet, and it is designed for average traders, accountants, merchants, right? And so identity kind of is there, but it's not really there. We intend on having, we intend on deploying a mobile version in the future, right? And that's where we will supercharge the identity aspect of greenery because identity in the real world is, I feel, is a little bit more important than on the virtual world. But there's a merging of the two, right? So, I mean to say, let's say, you know, right now there's a lot of conflict going on all around the world, right? You have
Yes.
Ukraine, you have Palestine, you have Sudan, you have Myanmar, you have conflict all around the world. And one of the scenarios that I give to people is like, okay, just imagine you as a mother with your family in the middle of the night, you just hear gunshots and tanks rolling down your street, and you know you gotta go. And so you grab the little things that you can. You grab your cell phone, maybe your wallet. You grab your child. You wake up your husband, right? You running down the steps. You see stuff going on in the street. You take the back alleyway, and then you're trying to cross over the ravine, the river to the other side, and maybe make it across the border somehow, right? And on all that, oh man, you drop your book bag. Your book bag had your passport. It has the baby's birth certificate. It has your husband's work ID, right? So how do you declare yourself in the next country? How do we know your stuff? We don't know, right? And so this is where cryptocurrency, how it bridges over to the real world, where your mnemonic phrase is not just your mnemonic phrase. Your mnemonic phrase can hold um your birth certificate. It can hold your government ID, right? It can have your immunization records, right? And so I believe that it's important that for cryptocurrency to be truly taken seriously, that these functions and aspects and these bridges to the real world are baked into the products that are being built for Web3. And identity is very important um, to making sure that um, cryptocurrency is taken seriously, Web3 is taken seriously.
Yeah, I definitely see that, and the scenario that you just mentioned, definitely useful to have a digital way of easily proving your identity, not worrying about the paper, a paper ID. Like it happens, it happens.
Hmm.
Yeah, it happened to me that I forgot my passport to to take a to go to the airport, and then I'm with yeah, a surprise that I cannot take my flight.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, if we would be able to have digital identifiers, we can just easily prove
Hmm.
who we
Who we
are.
are. Yeah.
Yeah, and what do you think about like these authentication methods, like for example, World ID or proof of humanity are using, like for example, World ID is using your eye, or the other one is using proof of humanity is using scanning your fingerprints or your palm.
Uh,
Is there something there that you would like also to integrate into your wallet in the future?
yeah. So I I'm not too familiar with proof of humanity, but I am familiar with WorldCoin. I think they're both noble causes though, or noble ways of going about it. The only issue is that it's with this centralized entity, right? Um, I think everything should be decentralized, right? Um, like, we create a wallet, right? So we're just like, I don't know, we're like Calvin Klein. We create wallets, right? But we don't own or have access to the cash in your wallet or your credit cards or right? And so if we were to integrate a function like that, biometric function, um, we don't want to have access to that. Um, right? That's very personal and that's very it's very it's very personal, right? I don't want we would not want to have access to that. We're repairing um biometric data to an actual person unless they're actually um given the consent to do that pairing, right? We wouldn't want to do that. But ultimately, um it is important because the thing is also, and kind of to touch on your point a little bit, conflicts end, right? So there's a day that the conflict with Ukraine is going to end, and Palestine and and Sudan is going to end. How do people declare their land and their property when they come back? You know, so
How do they
again,
prove who they are?
how do they
Yeah.
prove who they are? You know,
Mm.
so that's the other part of it as well. You know.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of compliance needed with all that biometrical data.
Hmm. Hmm.
And what are any like kind of like thoughts that you have regarding decentralized identity and maybe standards or things? Or have you looked into that space or anything that you would like to share?
I I haven't looked into that space too much yet. Um, I have written down some notes in regards to identity for greenery in the future. Um, I mean, when you use, for instance, when you use any wallet on your cell phone, you have the ability to unlock it with your fingerprint, you know. Well, I don't know for iPhone users anymore, but for Android, we can still use our fingerprint to unlock it. Um, but I think it can go beyond that where um it can be used in and I don't want to go too far because it kind of borders on um stuff that we want to implement. So I want to keep that a little bit secret. But I do believe that biometrics can go a little bit further um and really do some really interesting things with the pairing of cryptocurrency and and identity. Yeah.
That's awesome. And for example, in your opinion, what do you think is missing also to make the user onboarding easier for your users, for your users that who are not in the Web3 space?
Hmm.
Um, and how are you working towards that future?
That's a very good question. Um, Things need to be practical. Um, but then also education and then repetition as well. So, for instance, showing people a 12-word phrase, they're taken aback a little bit because, you know, typically when you sign up for Google or when you sign up for Amazon or whatever, you just put in your email address and password, and that's it, right? There's no extra layer, right? Um, and But in the cryptocurrency ecosystem, in the Web3 ecosystem, you have a 12-word phrase, and this is a portal to everything, right? So once you have this 12-word phrase, then you can sign up to a website called Object. Interestingly enough, Object does not have a mechanism to sign up using your email address and password, right? And Object is the equivalent of OpenSea, but for the Tezos ecosystem. Um, I think OpenSea just recently, I could be wrong, but I believe maybe in like the past 2 years, they added support for email addresses. I could be wrong though. Um, I don't know. I think it really boils down to education in terms of onboarding.
Hmm.
Um, because even now, even still, I mean, the computing has been ubiquitous for I'd say definitely for the past 20 years, right? And people still lose their passwords.
Yeah, that's
Right?
something very common.
That's very costly, and people still lose their passwords. And so, I mean, I don't know. I think I think with the onboarding process, it's really about education. Really making sure that people understand the gravity of your 12-word phrase, or rather your mnemonic phrase, because it could be any length. Understanding the gravity of it, understanding how to back it up, which is very important, um, and knowing that it is the keys to who you are. Um, and there's no way of you can't call up Satoshi Nakamoto or Vitalik and say, "Hey, can you send me my 12-word phrase or my mnemonic phrase? I forgot it." Right? There's none of that, and so it really makes you um more what's the word? More
Accountable?
responsible, accountable. Thank you. That is the right word. It makes you more accountable for who you are, your identity, especially in regards to the Web3 space. So I guess to answer your question a little bit more directly, the the onboarding experience, there needs to be more education in regards to how to go about it or just how it is done to just make sure that people don't take it for granted or minimize it in the sense that they just like you know they're not they're not careful with how they manage their mnemonic phrase. But last point on this, for us with Greenery, we have taken efforts to ensure that people do not lose access to their 12-word phrase.
Oh, that's amazing. How are you doing that?
So within the wallet, um, when they sign up, so when they sign into the wallet, it emails them in an encrypted file that can only be opened by them on that specific computer that they used. It has a backup of their 12-word phrase in a non-descriptive file. So like anyone that looks at the file, they wouldn't know what it is. And yeah. Um, and so we've gone through the paces of trying to reduce the likelihood of people losing access to their cryptocurrency.
Yeah, um that's a good thing. Like especially if you want to onboard people who are new to the crypto space or new to Web3. I think
Mm-hmm.
something that always comes back is the fact that people are scared to that level of accountability and
Mm-hmm.
scared of like sending their funds to the wrong address or forgetting their password.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Mm-hmm.
that's something that comes very often, definitely. And when are you planning to when are you planning also to integrate more of these features that we talked about like having your identity documents also stored into your wallet? That's
Ooh.
if that's something that you plan to do it in that way as we spoke. Or
Which,
are you planning to store on-chain credentials for like on-chain credential verification for that sort of document? Or
ooh.
yeah.
That's very so the short answer is yes. The long answer is I don't know when. Um, and there's a lot that would go into it. There is a lot that would go into that. But yes, that is something because yeah, going back to the scenario, right? You know, just being able to just having your mnemonic phrase is not enough, you know, or just having your cell phone um is not enough. You know, you need to be able to have those documents readily available. And there were efforts in the past, human Humanique or Humanique was a token on it was an ERC20 token that aimed to do this. And there's a few others as well that had aimed to do this, but I don't know how far their efforts had went um, in being able to do it in total. There's also a couple other uh, currencies that are aiming to do the same thing, but for the medical industry. Um,
to
yeah,
to uh to
medical record.
tokenize on medical records, do you mean like
Yes,
verifiable credentials for medical? Oh,
yes. Because I'll give you a story. When I was in I went to St. Lucia when I was a kid, and I had an allergic reaction, and I got some random shot, and my father wanted to figure out, okay, so what did you give my son? And they're like, well, we can't give you the medical records, blah blah blah, or like these. I think they told him like he had to pay some crazy amount of money or whatever. And this was not uncommon, excuse me, where just in general, anywhere, you have to pay for your medical records, right? And it's actually a song and dance. If you have multiple doctors, right? Your doctors don't know each other, right? And so you have to send those medical records other places. And many times they may not accept email. They may want you to send it by fax because fax is considered to still be more secure than email, right? Um, and so there's a whole lot of issues in regards to sharing or disseminating medical records. But ultimately, the major problem is you don't own your medical records. You
Yes,
as the actual, you know, uh, subject of the medical records, right? You don't own your medical records. Someone else does, and you have no you have no say in how they store it, who has access to it, how it's shared, right? Yes, we have HIPAA laws in the United States, but you as an individual, there's no real way for you to verify whether the data silo that your medical records are a part of is actually being taken care of, right? And it's only a matter of time when some hacker somewhere decides to target a medical records silo or target one of these medical records companies and does something with it, right? Um, the way that I envision medical records in regards to identity is that you, as the patient, as the subject of the medical records, you are supposed to give consent or grant access to the healthcare providers and not the other way around, right? And so,
definitely.
yeah, and so how do we do this? We have to ensure that there's encryption. We have to ensure that, you know, I don't want to get too far because we want to implement this in the future, but you have to ensure that that is always available in that you as a subject matter, as a subject of the medical records, that you have control at all times.
Definitely. For medical records, it makes total sense. Like, for example, in my experience, I have moved to 6 different countries and I have
Wow.
medical records all over the place. So it will make a lot more sense to own my medical records on chain so then I can let my doctors verify that information because I have medical records in different languages.
Oh,
Yeah, it's complex. So I think
that's a
more
lot.
and more people are moving a lot from different countries, and that's when things start to make sense. Same for people who move to different countries, work in different countries. How do they prove that they have the actual experience that they claim, like
Yeah.
on chain verifiable credentials?
hmm So it's very interesting that you bring that up because I was talking to um this guy, a Spanish doctor. He well, he's a professor now, but he was a surgeon in in Spain. I'm not sure, maybe Barcelona. Um, and he has a cryptocurrency uh company where the idea is to create or to verify degrees on chain, right? Or create on chain degrees. And the reason why is that degree fraud is rife all over the world, right? So mean to say, um, you can go not almost in any country. I don't want to say that, but there's an issue in Florida where there's a whole bunch of medical professionals that had false degrees, right? And so they're performing all these functions on people. Not to say that they weren't skilled or whatever, but they didn't have an actual, their degree was fake, right? Um, In India, you know, they sell degrees. Um, South America. I mean, it's all over the place, and this is something that he wants to implement, and he's still working on it. But to your point, it's like, okay, if you move from one country to the next, I mean, anyone could put together a resume and say, "Hey, I'm a rocket scientist," and you know, I'm a rocket scientist, and the country they're coming from, I don't know, they speak, whatever language, and you're here in America. Who here is going to be able to verify that or whatever, right? You need to be able to. There needs to be a mechanism that declares your identity, not only just your basic identity, but then your medical, right? And then also your professional and your educational identity as well. It's very important.
Definitely, I see that future, and that's the kind of future that we are working towards. That's great to hear. Yeah. My last question is: do you have any upcoming features that you're really excited with Greenery and that you would like to share and with the audience?
Yes, certainly. So we're looking to add more currencies, um, add staking to the wallet as well, support the Lightning Network for Bitcoin, um, and NFT support, but then mostly more financial rich data, right? And so essentially inching it towards it being the de facto wallet for professionals in the cryptocurrency space. So, just using Exodus or using MetaMask or Temple or Phantom, that is cool and all, but they're not really oriented for professional use. And that's our objective. We want in the next 2, 3 years, um, when in universities, colleges around the world, when they're trying to teach cryptocurrency concepts, that they use Greenery to teach those concepts, right? Like, hey, this is how you send um, value from one address to another, or this is how you create an invoice denominated in cryptocurrency that goes to an address that you generated on the dashboard, or this is how you print a paper wallet, right? Um, for the future, for future storage. And so essentially we're working on making it we're working on making it the drop-in replacement for all your bookkeeping and accounting needs in regards to um, cryptocurrency, and we're getting there. So to answer your question more directly, um, we're going to be adding more currencies. We're going to be adding more functionality such as staking, and then we're going to be introducing more bookkeeping and accounting functionality. Um, and yeah, that's the future.
Awesome. Really excited to see what's coming next. And what's the best way to get in touch with you and your team is if anyone is interested in Greenery?
Yes, so we are on Instagram and Twitter or X at Greenery Finance. Our website is greenery.finance for the wallet. You can download it directly there. Um, our website, greenfire.io. So that just lists who we are. You can download the wallet right now on directly from the website, or you can go to Homebrew for Mac, and you can get it there. You type in Greenery. You can get it on Chocolatey for Windows, and type in Choco install Greenery, and you can get it for Snapcraft. Um, and the same thing, Snap install Greenery. And yeah,
Awesome. Thank you so much. Thank you, Corey.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Steph. Really appreciate it.